3, but CB4, CB5, here, CB6.
John Keller for Sandy McCabe.
Thanks for being here, John. CB7.
Here.
Hi, Beverly. CB8.
Here.
CB9.
Here.
CB10, I was told Marquise is going to be joining in a little bit virtually. CB11, CB12. Don't see on just yet. All right. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And can I also get a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from the previous month, which were sent out earlier?
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I will be giving the borough president's report for today. So again, welcome back. Hopefully, this year will also be hopefully a little easier for some folks, but just wanted to start off with maybe one of the reasons why I'm hoping that this will be a short meeting too, which is I'm going to go back into my cave and continue finalizing the community board applications, which we are hoping, fingers crossed, if not tomorrow, then early next week will be available. So for everybody who is up for reappointment, our team will reach out to all of your members. They're going to be announcing it at full board as well. We make sure the district managers are included in that. So we are going to be reaching out to all of the members whose terms are up for this year. So again, my hope is that we can have something available to folks tomorrow, if not Monday.
So the application beyond current members will go out tomorrow as well, or that's separate?
The application for new and reapplicants
Okay.
should be available.
Okay.
So yeah, I know that a couple of boards are short some members and need some additional bodies. Our hope is, with the application period starting now, when we start to do our review, et cetera, that we can get some really motivated new folks. We are adding an additional couple of layers beyond like the self-attest that they will be like attending these meetings in person and understands like how much like time and their responsibility of attending these meetings are. We're going to keep hammering that with the interview portion. When we start to make appointments, we're going to have those conversations individually with folks just to make sure that, that you guys are getting what you need in terms of community board service.
And just quorum.
Yeah.
Here, we have a lot of new people on our board, and I think a lot of them are somewhat surprised at the time commitment.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. And we've spoken to folks during the process last year too, but it seems like we need to just do it a couple more times just to reinforce that this is a requirement, not just a comment or a suggestion. So thank you for that. Just a couple of upcoming events, which we'll share some flyers soon. On February 4th, we're going to be holding a property valuation event with the Department of Finance. So this is for everyone from single family homeowners or townhouse owners, as well as entire co-ops or condos. So we'll be getting that information out soon. If you can just help us disseminate that through your newsletters, et cetera. We just want to make sure that folks get that resource. It'll be February 18th here at 1 Center Street on the mezzanine level. Again, that's in conjunction with Department of Finance. We are also asking folks to just save the date tentatively for our State of the Borough happening on March 23rd. I don't have more details than that yet, but I will share as soon as I do. Just 2 more things. I don't think Tammy is on with us, but I spoke with Tammy, who I know was sharing some of the same concerns that others had with OCM ahead of their comment period, which was Christmas Eve. So, and just before Hanukkah. So we did send public comment. The borough president submitted public comment in support of boards, in support of the community as it related to those OCM guidelines. It covered things like the appeals process, questions about the criteria for evaluating applications, talked about resources, and I think most importantly is the public comment and review periods for community boards and for the community at large.
Can I ask two
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah.
One is, can we see is that letter online?
share
or-
that with you.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
can share that with all of you.
And then second is, I think at our last meeting, I took a note that said we had talked about collectively having a meeting with OCM. And I guess I wanted, and like what that might look like, and I don't know if that's something we would look to you to, well, one, I wanted to make sure that there's still interest in doing that. I know we have a different group that's here today than was at that last meeting, but, and then would you facilitate that, or should we just organize that
I
on
think
our
we could.
own?
No, I think that we could help
Okay.
that.
I think if
So
we.
I'll make a
That would
note.
be
of
really
that.
helpful.
We talked about,
Yes, we
Yeah.
did, we did.
I'm totally in favor of it. I'm sure that Bradley mentioned it. We all have common interests.
Yeah.
You know, the time periods and, you know, acting collectively is shown.
yeah, and I was speaking with our DM about it, and also just, you know, they have a set of rules that maybe are changing, but a set of guidelines, I should say, that they are assessing these applications on, and we sometimes say things like, this is not a suitable location because of X, Y, and Z, but if they're not considering that, it would just be good, it'll shape how we write our letters. We may want to also change the guidelines, which is why it would be helpful to see your letter and what you suggested on that. But just as it relates to like the everyday work of reviewing these applications, it'll be good to know and hear more directly from them what they're
Yes.
prioritizing.
And our community board, we're actually doing a review of the guidelines
Mhm.
that we voted on
Right,
in light of our experience today. And this would be so helpful.
so I don't want to make it too complicated, but it might be helpful if we could set a meeting with OCM, and would love your help on that, and then if we could do a quick call among our folks who are working, like, it's not me, like, I don't know, but our chair, who's our cannabis chair, to talk with everybody else so that there's some best practices that can be shared with each other before that call, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to do both. Let me get back to you on the meeting, but after this meeting, I'll share the OCM letter.
Great.
Yeah, and maybe this is as good a time as any, you know, similar issues with the curbside and outdoor cafes, right? So we've had a lot of activity there, and we've actually made very good progress. We have a Google tool that we use, and we've educated like a SWAT team people to go in. And we try to, you know, give everyone, you know, the due diligence. We've evolved our standards, but it would be interesting to see what everybody else is doing, because it's really been a crush.
Yeah, so I just had a conversation with Susan Stetzer, who's also been liaising with other district managers about this. I'm in contact with DOT right now to see if we can set up that conversation. So that just happened, if not Tuesday, then Wednesday. So I'm hoping to set up that conversation, because it sounds like there was a request for whatever the request was. DOT's feedback was that it merited further discussion. So we're trying to collaborate and make that discussion happen for everyone.
And if I may, as I probably done like 12 due diligence tours in the last 4 weeks, right? It's one of the biggest issues is the utter lack of information that the applicants have about the community board role. So when we show up, some of them are very good, you know, the ones where we have relationships based on the liquor licenses, they know who we are. We know that we're not hostile, right? But a lot of them view us with the utmost suspicion and hostility. And I think the DOT, I mean, they're the agency in charge of us. So it would be great if they could educate the people about our role, because, you know, I'm sometimes worried that they're gonna like pull out a pitchfork, right? Anyway, enough said about it.
Appreciate that. And just before you got, we were talking about the OCM letter. I'll send it out to you. We're talking about our conversation just before the holidays. So we'll send that out, and we're also gonna see if we can facilitate a meeting with OCM for everyone.
Yeah, my understanding from what I'm reading, about like the 1,000-foot rule that's kind of currently out there and going around is, that they're actually providing licenses even though there's no 1,000-foot distancing.
There's no what?
1,000-foot
There's
distance.
a 1,000-foot rule out there that
They're making exceptions.
They're making exceptions, but they have no rule-making ability to make exceptions. There's no laws that allow them to do that. That's
This
one.
is DOT.
No, this is OCM.
OCM.
Oh, see, no, this is, oh, excuse me, we're talking about.
Yeah, we're back to
cannabis.
cannabis.
Oh, and for DOT, did you mention about the FDNY?
Oh, for
Or
the
the-
lanes,
Yeah.
the waivers on lane widths.
So for for DOT for outdoor dining, we found two things in community board one. We get diagrams that don't have a service path. And we tell them that your service path has to be within, they said, no, we're gonna serve on the sidewalk.
Which is,
We said it's illegal and they said, and then they look and they say, oh, well, there's a 12-inch path. But when the program was under DCP, they were required for a 36-inch path. And according to DOB rules, there's 19 is the smallest, depending on the number of people in the restaurant. So there's no DOT guidance anywhere on it. But there is old guidance and DOB guidance. And so there has to be a corresponding DOT reference to existing laws that were set.
we had,
This is for what? The service?
Outdoor dining for the service
we
path.
had a meeting with DOT and we pointed this out, that you have to have, even though it's not mentioned, it has to by definition, in order to avoid service from the street, you have to have these aisles, and that's what we've been pointing out. And it's like, a lot of the applicants, I mean, they're pleasantly surprised that we're trying to help them, but they are really, I don't feel like they're informed.
So a meeting would be great. Eric is the.
Yeah, no, I haven't for that one too. All right, thank you for that.
We requested FDNY to come and give us a presentation on the variances and what that entails. Because once FDNY starts issuing variances to DOT, it's beyond roadbed dining, then it's also for pedestrian plazas and everything else that goes. So we're a little confused how if a fire truck is 8 feet wide, whether allowing a 10-foot path because the roadbed takes up 5 feet or whatever is acceptable, and how that could work for an 8-foot fire truck. Cause then you're assuming that there's nothing else there. So, yeah.
And we're getting a lot of those now.
Yeah, we haven't heard back from FDNY yet, but we did ask for a presentation, so anything that your office could do to elevate that would be amazing.
Just taking notes.
Yeah, Tammy, I'll reach out.
Thanks.
Thanks. One other thing that I want to mention, because I know it's come up for a couple of district managers, and I think at least one chair has reached out to me about this. We are reviewing each individual one at this point, just to make sure that we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but I'm hoping to, if not in the next couple of weeks, the beginning of next month, have something that I can share with each board about when members are expected to expire in terms of term limits. Just because I know that it's tough to expect the district managers and others to have enough information to make that determination. And, if we have that data, which we're combing through and we're just, making sure that it's accurate, we're hoping to have some guidance on that probably, if not at the end of this month, then my expectation is sometime next month.
Is the stuff that's already on the website not updated yet?
The rosters.
Rosters with the expirations?
So the rosters have on the website, I believe what they have is year of first appointment. It doesn't have the expiration. So we are updating it to have the expiration.
Because as a reminder, if you are appointed, the law, I guess it's a law, I don't know, whatever goes into effect, it's depending on the year you're appointed, you either get 10 years, five consecutive term or something, 5 terms, or if it's 2 years,
2020.
then it's another set of terms.
Right, so-
Because they didn't want everybody to be off in 2 years.
Yeah,
So
basically,
you have to like figure out
if
that
you
out.
were appointed, just roughly, if you were appointed twenty seventeen or beforehand on an odd year is the best way to say it for a two-year
I think
term.
it's 2019.
Then 2027 is the first.
Isn't it 2019? Because it's
Well,
2019
is when it started, and then
kicked in.
there's the 4 terms.
And then
from
there's
there.
the 2020,
But
which
it
is the one.
basically was the 27 to 2019 term, so it's 5 terms technically. So it kicks in for 2027.
Yeah, 'cause I did, legal.
The first people are 2027, and
Correct.
if you were appointed or reappointed in 2020, then it's 2030.
Right.
Right, okay.
So we're finalizing that. There are some people, again, the reason why we're going through it is there are people who were mid-year appointments in 2019. There are
Great.
people whose data is off because like I have a board where somebody was a board member for a long time. They took like 4-year gap and then got back on. So just making sure that it's based on consecutive terms. So we're just trying to go through it with a fine tooth comb to make sure that we have it as accurate as possible for everyone.
Is your interpretation?
Yeah.
Is your interpretation, so if this is about consecutive terms, so if someone takes a year off, it restarts, including that they could just take off when they hit their 5-year
That's my
and then come
understanding.
back on and do another.
So they don't have to sit out a full 2 years? It's just 1 year, I mean, in the sense of they're consecutive, they can be appointed after 1-year hiatus?
I'll check with our general counsel because he's been in contact with the law department and going through the actual charter revision to make sure that we are giving. So on top of this, we're also gonna have a 1-pager
Great.
that's gonna have a lot of answers to this. So hopefully we can get an answer to whether it's a 2-year term absence, if it's like a mid-year appointment absence, like how, like, is it just an absence, or is it a full 2-year term? So we can ask that.
Thank you.
I'll send you, we had started going down this road of finding the information out in 2023. And I would be happy to share what general counsel at that point said,
Great.
because we did all the memos out and told everybody on the board when they were able to, how long they were able to stay at that point.
Yeah, I'm happy to look at it compared to what we
Yeah.
have. All right, I think with that, that's the end of my report. We don't have a presentation today, so we're gonna go straight into chair reports. And yes, January, first month.
You know,
I'm happy to,
can I go second?
sure.
Sorry.
So Susan, sorry.
I will wait the coffee. Okay, I will start. Happy New Year, everyone. January so far has been a little quieter than December, which has been nice. Our sort of most, I guess, high profile thing continues to be the Gansevoort Square development. The EDC had presented to the board last month and they're working on a very accelerated timetable. So they decided to have their community engagement also just a week after they presented to us, and they decided to hold it on the night of our board meeting. So we had to, since board members couldn't attend, we requested and did receive this month 2 additional sessions, engagement sessions. And what we're hearing from the community is the same things that we've been hearing from the board members is, you know, why the timetable for getting out an RFP seems so accelerated, why they're pushing for a tower. The site, we are being discouraged from discussing the site plan. The site plan only allocates 15% of the total area for housing of any kind, of which we will get half being affordable. And of course, this is city-owned land, so of course, people are not challenging why so little of it is going for larger community benefit and the benefit of people who are simply not wealthy. It continues. On the 13th of the month, we had a very productive meeting regarding Washington Square Park and artists and performers in the park. Good attendance. I want to thank the borough commissioner, the park administrator, PEP leadership, community affairs, sixth precinct. We had good turnout to listen to our artists who are talking about concerns over rules regarding amplified sound, restrictions on where they can perform in terms of relationship to monuments and the restrictions on distances, and even the challenge to the idea of permitting, and whether it's appropriate to require permitting for artists of any kind. You know, it's such a tradition to have performing artists and artists of various types in the park. But as the park becomes more and more crowded and more people are using it, it becomes a challenge to promote fairness of use. Outdoor dining continues to be we're getting a lot of applications. Our last meeting we had 27 items on the agenda, 24 of which were roadway, three sidewalk. We had 6 applications that are being sent to FDNY for travel lane waivers. This is showing up a lot, and it's, you know, of concern. How do you know, any place with narrow streets, we're just worried about, you know, it's a safety issue, obviously. And in December, of the 2 meetings in December, we had a total of 40 applications. So another thing that's going to be happening is pretty quickly, we're going to get to a point where it's not going to be possible to start, you know, reviewing all of the applications. It is a concern whether we have to reconfigure our working group or, you know, the timetable also makes it tough. But again, I have to say that the feedback I've been getting is that our applicants are really happy that they're talking to us. They're getting, you know, our people are very knowledgeable about what the regulations are and what they can and can't look at, and they're finding it really helpful. So we really want to be part of a cooperative process. And lastly, I just want to point out, we actually heard, our cannabis committee heard 2 renewals, which it's a 2-year license. So we've actually gotten to the point in the process where we're starting to hear renewals. So it shows you how much is going on. But, you know, the number of applications for legitimate operations, you know, so pales in comparison to the number of illegal operations, and that, you know, we've 2 years into the legal process and we're still being overwhelmed by the illegal operations, which is a real challenge to, you know, to legal operations. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you so.
Sure. Okay, thanks very much for your patience. We had a great presentation from EDC regarding the new changes at Pier 6 for people who have been following the topics and the issues around helicopter noise. There's a new RFP winner that they put out, which will include the eventual changeover to electric EV tolls, which is a real incredible improvement. The city's done a lot to help try and do what it can about tourism and business traffic at the piers base to balance community needs. So we're excited. They're adding a blue highway and micromobility, which is exciting to try and take more trucks off the street. However, what we've seen and what we're experiencing in Community Board 1 is an incredible amount of e-bikes and of all kinds, up from just a pedal assist all the way through moped-like and dirt bike-like. And some of those are now with the micromobility, and with micromobility are coming the smaller, quote unquote, you know, electric trucks and things like that. But we haven't, as a city, we've cheered and pushed the advent with Blue Highway, but we haven't created the infrastructure or the rules and regs for where they need to go. So it's a huge concern that we have that now at every pier, we're going to have blue highways, which is awesome to get the trucks off the street. But when you take a look at the Amazon guy who's doing the Whole Foods deliveries, he is as long as a Cadillac Escalade. Weighs as much with a full cart as a Cooper, a Mini Cooper. Mini Coopers and Escalades and Hummers all have to follow rules of the roads, but these guys do not. So the question starts to be, what can the city and the state start to do, and where can we advocate to get change? So you can actually cross the street and people have to stop at all points, so pedestrians are safe. It's a big conversation that we'd like to have. We're really grateful to DOT. Brooklyn Bridge Arches is going to open shortly, if not, oh, it did already, sorry, it's January. And their plaza partner is Gotham Park. So if you go around the Brooklyn Bridge now, we have more acres of green space and we have park programming and things like that. It's a real benefit for CB3 and CB1, and it's helps erase the line of demarcation that the Brooklyn Bridge created by being an obstruction versus being a public amenity that it used to be, that people can go back and forth in the park. So it's really exciting. We're even more excited for when a bathroom gets built there. And maybe we could get some help on that. We have a new monitor at the Brooklyn Bridge, at the BBJ, the Manhattan Detention Construction Demolition Site. But our 3-week experience underlined the huge amount of need that you have with large city projects for environmental monitors in the built environment. I can't say enough. I won't go into the weekly, daily calls of how difficult it is, but we need to ensure that the city will be willing to do an independent monitor for construction as well. 2025 is not looking slow for us. I wish sometimes we were in CB2 that way. We got a brand new.
It's early yet.
Yeah, we have a brand new police captain, Captain Fisher at the first precinct. Delighted to welcome him. He came last night. There are a lot of the concerns. We're hoping that some kind of task force can be set up to solve the issues around Battery Park, where we now have the ticket hawkers telling people that you have to have a ticket to actually walk into said park as a way of selling, and they are actively walking up the traffic lanes at the bottom of 9A and the bottom of the FDR, taking people off the line against traffic signals, saying, oh, no, come here, with a jacket that says security so they can sell tickets. It's really quite interesting. And then if anybody watched the State of the City address, it was really awesome to see 100 Gold Street on there, which is a city-owned property, and have the mayor put out a proposal for what he'd like to do, which is gonna end up assumably in full ULURP because it's currently FAR 6 or 8, and the building that he showed is FAR 18. But again, we have 7 commercial buildings that are converting to full luxury market. We are hoping to have discussions with the city when they come. EDC is coming on Thursday, and not having the process rushed because we need affordable housing. If we could build 100% affordable housing with other amenities that the community needs and to help solve the problems, not add to the problems, that would be outstanding. And since this is city-owned property, it's not going to cost them to purchase the land. We truly think that a different mindset needs to be taken for this property to get us 100% affordable building. It's a discussion that will be starting. We understand that the mayor, from the mayor's speech, he's looking to sell it off to the highest bidder and off we go. But, we've got a hospital that's 45 years old and built before we had even half the number of people who live here. We have in the pipeline thousands of units of luxury housing. We need affordable housing before all of it disappears in Lower Manhattan. So that's our biggest challenge. I can't 1,000 times say enough of that about affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. And with that, I hope to celebrate Chinese New Year with our neighbors and friends, and I'll end my report.
That's great. Andrea, that's
Sure. I'll keep mine short as well. We had a shorter month as well, and holidays, a little bit more condensed activities the past couple of weeks. But I'll say that our office, after quite a prolonged period, is finally fully staffed. So yes, thank you. Things are going well, and the office affairs and incoming operations, particularly with SLA open dining, the number of issues that come to the office, things are more manageable. So we're feeling really good about that. We're also at a point where we're kind of reflecting on the past year with about 18 new members, which was a lot of heavy lifting for a lot of our chairpersons. So we're kind of looking at what we did well and what we could do better, and we're looking to establish goals for this year. So we're doing a little bit of internal strategic type planning. And let's see, we also did a walkthrough last week or this week, I don't know, with Trisha and Parks. We have a new area of Tompkins Square Park on the north side that's going to be reopened to a lot of new upgrades. It's been closed for many, many years. So we're looking forward to that and to continuing to improve that area and potentially look at some capital improvements there. And we also recently, our task force for Essex Crossing had a meeting, and things are progressing. I'm happy to say overall, the congestion, the MTA elevator that needs to be built on Delancey Essex is finally progressing, and we have some exciting tenanting news coming soon. So I'm sure you'll read about it in the news in the
Nice.
coming weeks. So.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah.
Jessica.
Yes. It has not felt like a slow January for us. We had the Western Rail Yards ULURP before us. This, for those who follow in the news, it was often talked about CB4 denied a casino. That was not what we did. We denied the zoning changes that were being proposed, that were heavily negotiated as part of the Hudson Yards deal and process from 2009, and the current proposal eliminates primarily the market rate housing, but to Tammy's point, we're concerned about housing in general, market rate and affordable. And so we ultimately denied the ULURP. It is, some say that it is the first time that CB4 has outright denied a ULURP since 1988. We always, despite what the press said, frustratingly, often come with a deny unless, because we believe in working to seek compromise and finding solutions to what's being proposed. But ultimately, a combination of the many factors, but I would say at a high level, the elimination of housing, as well as the environmental, just did not, it really showed that there were environmental factors that could not be mitigated, and the concern is just too great. And some of us have been involved with conversations about how that even extends to areas outside of our district, even into the water. But ultimately, it was very contentious. You can imagine brought out everybody. Many of you may have followed what the High Line has also been doing to organize around this. So it was very difficult. And obviously it'll go to the borough president, and we reached out to suggest a meeting because there are a lot of nuances there, and want to make sure that those are well understood. Additionally, we had I feel like it's going to continue to be the thing I have to reference at every meeting, but is the NYCHA proposal. It's a PAC project at Fulton Elliott Chelsea, which is currently being proposed to be full demolition and rebuild for the 2,056 tenants who live there. It is it is even more highly contentious and difficult. Not just is there increasing resistance among tenants with a new tenant leader who's vocally opposed to the demolition, but also just community organizing around the project. That's really been increasing. We're not even at the ULURP stage. We're still in the environmental review stage. We know our elected support this project, and similarly would love to find a way that we can work together to find compromise for what this should be, which is currently proposed to be new housing for the existing residents, as well as anywhere from, I think it's 1,800 to 3,000 new units built on infill, 30% of which would be affordable. So we there are many areas in which we could work to seek compromise, including increasing the amount affordable, decreasing the total number of units, which would bring down the building height. We're talking about 30 stories on the avenue in abutting special districts. So it's really, there's a lot there. And one thing that actually does potentially impact all of you is currently the proposal, which is new information for us, the proposal would create a windfall for NYCHA to be able to money that they would receive from the developer, which they would plan to use to support all of the NYCHA developments across the city. While that might be good for NYCHA and for the city, we feel that it's ultimately selling our public land to the highest bidder and reshaping our neighborhood and not ensuring that the residents in our neighborhood are being looked after. So there are a lot of concerns about that. And also that wasn't made clear at the beginning is similarly concerning. There's a significant lack of trust as it relates to this project. The other things I wanted to mention, just in the vein of new members and how we integrate them and actually connected to term limits, we've started a board engagement working group that'll be a combination, it's 8 or 10 people, a combination of veteran as well as new members and people who have expressed interest to look at how we can ensure that we are keeping board members engaged in the ways that they want so that they stick around, that they come to meetings and participate, that they find that what we're offering is something they want to be a part of, because that's also, sometimes it's mixed expectations about what maybe they thought it was more of a social club and people leave after a meeting because they have their own social plans, or maybe they thought, so figuring out how we can address that better, but also because of impending term limits. And the person who said we haven't outright denied a ULURP since 1988 remembers, because he's been on the board since 1988, and we will lose some of that. So obviously, and I know that's by design, but how do we make sure that we're doing knowledge transfer and all of those things? So that's what the board engagement working group will be focused on. I also just wanted to note, I had shared that Port Authority Bus Terminal, passed the ULURP. They just got their federal loan, which was more than they expected just this week, of $1.9 billion. So that project is like barreling forward, which, I guess it is needed. So that's good. But as it relates to finding ways for community input and sustaining that, we're really encouraging them. I think next week will be their first meeting of what will be a construction task force modeled similarly off of what happened around the World Trade site, but recognizing that we have a lot more residents in the neighborhood than perhaps were there at that time. How do we really engage everyone? Because it will be between Port Authority, the Western Rail Yards, the Gateway. It'll become a very congested construction zone, not just for any one of these projects. So that coordination is really essential. We are concerned, and I guess I'm saying this more for the Borough President's office, we are concerned that a number of things that happen between ULURP and signing contracts with contractors and design, that there will be alterations to the project, including, for example, how they have considered open space. And so that was one of the concessions that we were able to get, making what's going to be the temporary bus terminal long-term park space, which is very exciting for us. But now we're learning things like, yes, it'll be park space, but there will be exhaust vents coming through that park space because buses need to go under it. And so those are things that we're significantly concerned about, and we need to ensure that the Port Authority remains open to the feedback that we have and the perspective that we have, and doesn't just feel that they can move forward because they got the approvals that they need. That's just one example. I did want to mention, one other thing. What we fondly refer to as Site K, which was part of the Eastern Rail Yards rezoning, as it's just adjacent from the Javits Center, has been an empty site for God knows how many years. We had been pushing the state to release an RFP. We gave feedback on that RFP. We worked really closely with ESD on this, and maybe just at the end of 2024, they announced developers for that site. It's the first site where they kept the total FAR at 20, which was what the initial RFP said. But in that interim, the residential FAR cap was lifted at the state level. And so what they've done is they've increased the FAR possible on this site. They kept again the total cap. We were comfortable with 20, but they increased the residential. And so this will be the first building that'll go forward that exceeds what was previously the cap on this. It'll be maybe 16, I'm not sure, we'd have to look back. But it'll also have community facilities, climate museum, and other things to bring engagement to the neighborhood. It does have a hotel. We were concerned that the hotel, because financing for hotels are very difficult right now, that could hold up the residential. They made it a requirement that the residential has to go forward regardless of hotel financing. And working just directly with the agency, like they heard these concerns and they worked with the applicants to make sure that it could happen. And so we're really like, we feel great about this. It'll be, I think it's 1,400 new units, that will be.
And this is the site near Javits?
Yeah. So, it really feels like a win. The challenge is we have also the Intrepid parking lot site, and now they want to do the same, and there will be less appetite, I think, for a 20-story, a 20 FAR building there. But we'll take the win as a win and deal with that on, when the time comes. So that's the update.
Great, thank you so much. Tom, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, so what's happening in CB5? The big news is tonight, we're having a vote on a major overhaul of our bylaws. This is after 5 months of careful review. We had a benchmarking effort where we surveyed many of the community boards in Manhattan that we felt was similar to ours, at least 10 or so, and created this wonderful spreadsheet to see, what changes we were considering and how they may reflect the best practices of, of all of the community boards in Manhattan. So we came up with over 150 changes in 6 buckets. Having been involved in that task force and the debates, it's just unbelievable. We really hadn't reviewed our bylaws in like 15 years. So that's all going to happen tonight. Just thinking about the highlights, looking at what everybody else was doing, we decided to move our elections from June to November, which seems to be taking into account, especially our board, with all the new members coming in, giving people a chance to be able to vote and have some sense of who the people are. We're going to have a short stub period to transition over. So that, I think, has been very well received. We surveyed all of our new members. Everybody had a chance to say what was important to them. One of the most important things was more democracy, more turnover, and giving everybody a chance to actually serve in leadership roles over time. We decided to transition from a nominating committee which performed the screening role to an elections committee, which is purely administrative. So again, there was a lot of discussion about that. Having been on our community board for over 9 years myself, it's definite change in philosophy there, which I supported. I thought it was time for a change, and so did many others. The idea that you have to have a body of longtime insiders acting as gatekeepers doesn't go over well with a lot of the newer members. So that's definitely, I would guess that's going to pass. The other thing is trying to be more current and better use of time and technology. We're switching over. We're getting rid of the traditional roll call vote and replacing it with show of hands. But really, what everybody wants is the electronic voting. So we've reached out to some of the other community boards to see what they were doing. Tonight, as an interim test, we're going to be using, of all things, Google Docs, and try to get our board members in the habit of voting electronically. So that's going to happen for the first time tonight. One thing that I have been concerned about, along with some others, is how this change. I mean, our board has been using the roll call vote since I was on it many years before. So I know from visiting other boards that that's not always the way it's done. But we've become so accustomed to it. So we do have some members with disabilities, so there's concern there about making sure that they're given reasonable accommodations. I'd be very interested, though, those of you who have electronic voting or experimenting with it, you know, what you've done for people, you know, hard of hearing or blind. You know, we really, it's our responsibility to make sure that those people are supported and given reasonable accommodations, but it's going to be a work in progress. It could involve, yeah, go ahead.
Isn't roll call vote part of the charter to open or close? I thought somewhere in the charter that a roll call was required. And for specifically, one, for attendance, and two, to ensure that all the people who are, say like that. I'm Tammy Meltzer, so I must affirm for a public meeting by oral and camera. I mean, that was the whole problem that we had during COVID, is that in order to be counted for a vote, you had to have a camera on to affirm that the person who was there was doing attendance and voting. So we roll call to approve the minutes as a way to do attendance in the beginning and set the public parameters, and then we roll call at the end to close the meeting. So that would be
We should talk about that.
my concern is.
We don't
Yeah.
do that in CBA.
Yeah, I was gonna go to Beverly, because I know they have, I was gonna talk about that process, but Beverly, if you can too.
Yeah, we moved about a year and a half ago to voting on our phone by essentially using the messaging app with a specific phone number that is managed by our secretaries at the moment. And the way we have managed the roll call is we have defined, we changed our bylaws to define voting yes on roll call as what was present. And we may move the roll call to different parts of the meeting depending on the meeting. But essentially the roll call is another vote on your phone, an electronic vote. And our accommodation for, we have a very small number at this point, maybe 2 board members who have difficulty with the technology. And we just ask them to raise their hand or something. It still doesn't take more than 30 seconds to get the outliers dealt with. And in this way, those who are online as well as those who are in the room can participate equally. We flash the individual, the software we use for this, which was developed by one of our board members, flashes on a large screen with the name of the voter and how they voted. So there is a public record. Plus we also have the back end that we retain on how each person voted on each item. It's worked very well. It's probably taken 30 minutes off of the length of our full board meetings, which now routinely end around 9 from 6:30. And that's been a huge plus that we all value a lot.
And Beverly, thank you. We're well aware of that. We've been in touch with your colleague that's doing that, and we're very interested. And that would be great, if all of us could pool our efforts in this. I know that having some familiarity with the disability laws and reasonable accommodations, I had issues with my own kids endlessly. They're both disabled. It's really, we should learn from each other as to what works and what's acceptable. Yeah.
We got rid of roll call voting in public because people had the perception of you form friendships over the years. And so what we did, it still has to be public. So we do have digital voting and paper voting, and people affirm when they go up to hand off to the elections committee to confirm who they voted for, whether it's electronic or on a paper ballot. And then once the elections are over, the results and who voted for whom is released, because that has to be on the public record. So that way
Yes.
it allows the kind of shaming or the calculation, as you hear, a certain member who on the front side of the alphabet may have already, it gets rid of the psychological component of it and allows that free will. But feel free to reach out to our district manager, Angel, and it's pretty streamlined now. And we usually do a test run in October to make things easier for the board members.
And that's what we're doing, something similar.
Whatever we can do to keep service. Thank you.
So very quickly, I'll just finish up. So we'll keep, I'm sure when Brad is here in subsequent meetings, we'll probably have some feedback about all these changes. Other changes, we have now, we're putting in place term limits for the officers and committee chairs. So people are going to have, overall, people are going to have much more chance to serve and rotate into committees. Given term limits, we felt that was appropriate. On other issues, I'm just going to refer back to what I said. The cannabis applications and the outdoor cafes and curbside cafes, I already mentioned that. That's been a big issue. We're using Google Forms. We've trained our people to go out and talk to people. There is, as I said before, there is an issue of the lack of awareness of the licensed applicants about the community board, what our role is, and that is definitely an issue. Let's see, we're engaging a new consulting firm for zoning issues before the district. We're in the process of sending out a letter in support of getting more judges in New York City. We feel that's important. And let's see, it's research on methods. I think that pretty much covers it.
Great, thank you so much. John, I know you're here virtually for CB6, if you'd like to share a report.
Yeah, hi. First of all, John Keller, first vice chair of CB6, and my apologies for not being there in person. The situation that required Sandy's absence didn't come up until 11 p.m. last night, and I wasn't able to move some things around. I'll just report on some issues that we've been dealing with that have come up more citywide. We've, as everyone, we've been dealing with the OCM and its lack of cooperation, lack of availability. Sandy and Jesus, our district manager, attended a meeting this week, spoke very vocally about that, particularly about one fairly egregious situation in our district. There's the Hallmark store, which has been at 2nd Avenue and 43rd Street for decades. It's been kicked out by a cannabis applicant who's able to pay twice the rent over vocal objections from the community. We had 30 people at our business affairs committee. So OCM claims they're going to send someone to one of our meetings to address some of these issues, because this is obviously our business affairs committee, as well as our government committee, is looking into the 1,000-foot rule and passing resolutions around all of those things. So that's affecting us as deeply as others. Another thing of citywide interest, we passed a resolution last week on Intro 210/2024, prohibiting any New York City agency from imposing length of shelter stay restrictions in any shelter of any type in the city. And we had unanimous support for that. We've also been dealing with the whole situation of e-bikes and sidewalk safety. It's been, this came out actually, another thing Sandy and I have been working on is we've had a fairly extensive mentoring process for our new members that I was responsible for as first vice chair, but Sandy and Jesus were very engaged in it. And what came out of that process relates to term limits. I mean, if people are on for 8 years, we have to get them engaged as quickly as possible. So what we started doing was holding meetings for the new people. And initially we thought it was going to be, well, we'll help you write resolutions. And actually it became creating a community of people who want to keep getting together, which is fine with us. And we're ongoing with that. And we're having a board-wide gathering next week. So we're trying to so much was lost during COVID, as you all know, in terms of just getting to know each other and new members just feeling uncomfortable even talking to members who've been around. So we're really working hard to overcome that. There's a big development at Kips Bay, the Science Park and Research Campus at Kips Bay. There's a school going in there. The last time I checked, EDC did not decide what a school was, so we're going to reach out to the DOE to find out, what the school is, who's going to have access to it, especially as relates to our community. And finally, we noticed that as a committee, a board, we passed 82 resolutions last year beyond the licensing resolutions, which would triple that. So we're going to have a concerted effort this year just to follow up on what happened. We passed 82 resolutions. Let's see what happened on each of them. So basically, the OCM issues that are common to everyone, concerned about shelters in the city, really emphasizing mentoring and getting people together. E-bikes, we chime in loudly on, and following up on the 82 resos that we presented. And to the point that was just made, Jesus Perez, our district manager, has put in place an electronic voting system, and I know he's in touch with other district managers about it, and it seems to be working fairly successfully. So I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it. Beverly, I'll pass it to you.
Good morning. We've had to cancel 2 committee meetings this month for lack of a quorum. Many members are sick, lots of diseases going around, and the weather obviously hasn't been very warm. And we hoped that the push in Albany for relief from the current open meeting law in-person requirement continues. I know that Brad Hoylman Siegel, Senator, has carried a bill in the past, and we would hope that all would push to get that moved forward. Even a little bit of relief on the requirement for committees only would be incredibly welcome. We've never had a problem quorum at our full board, but committees are small, and a couple of folks who are sick can do you in, and we really need some relief there and hope that is moving forward. We share the concerns expressed earlier in the meeting about dining out NYC applications, but we also have a unique issue there. We have multiple instances where DOT insists that they noticed us on a particular application, and we have absolutely no record of receiving anything from them. We cannot get to the bottom of it. We've asked them over and over again, and this has created some tension with members of the community who blame us for not reviewing items that are critical to their interest. So just getting an understanding of what the problem has been immensely frustrating here. We had a meeting convened by Councilmember Brewer with Department of City Planning regarding the ABC block at 65th and Amsterdam, which is really the largest undeveloped site in Manhattan, freed up by the fact that ABC is moving its broadcast functions. We're concerned that the solutions suggested by city planning, despite the fact that we've had a ULURP, community ULURP application pending now for several years, is not moving forward, and that we're concerned that we have no leverage to prevent essentially a super tall luxury tower, which is what the developer would like to do and can do as of right. Later this month in committee, we're holding an information session on a new family shelter opening in February on West 95th Street, west of between Riverside and West End, in an SRO building. I think there is concern that it's around the corner from school. And the fact that the facility is going to be run by Goddard Riverside, though, has given many on the board a level of comfort that at least it will be well managed. Our Transportation Committee passed resolutions on protected left turn signals and the need for replacing plastic bollards with more sturdy devices. And we are awaiting feedback from DOT on that. We're one of 3 neighborhoods in the city where DOT is rolling out its first micro hub zones. In the next few months, 3 of them are destined for our district, and we've asked them to present the details in February. We will have a very small but very vocal minority who are going to be opposed to losing a handful of parking places. We have a survey to our members that is out and to be completed this month on what they would like to see our board focus on and what matters they feel need improvement. And we're hopeful that will give us some real meat to make some changes we think we need. Our lease problem is continuing, and we've now asked DCAS to search for a new space, and that search is underway. It may take, we understand, a significantly long time for us to have relief there. We completed about a month ago a series of revisions to our own bylaws, and in the course of doing that work, I had occasion to study section 2800 of the city charter, which is the section that focuses on the role of community boards. There is a provision there that I had not really focused on before, which requires each board to render an annual report to the mayor, the council, and the borough board within 3 months of the end of each year. And that those reports should be published in the city record. This is a separate provision from the district needs provision. This is something that, at least in decades, our board has never done, and I'm not sure that other boards routinely do this at all. And we've been trying to think of how to comply with this in a way that is useful both to the elected officials and to us. And I am floating internally for discussion at this point the idea that in order to comply with this section, we write something early in the year that does essentially conveys information on the 5 resolutions that we've passed that we feel are most important that have not been addressed by city agencies. We feel that would be a useful way to actually use this provision, and would love some feedback from others if they think that makes sense. That's it.
Thank you, Beverly.
I have just a question,
Yeah.
Beverly. Beverly, just a question. Hi, it's Jessica. On just the open meetings, and am I understanding you would prefer your committee meetings to be able to be exclusively online, or what is the proposal?
Well, I know that the bill that Senator Hoylman Siegel carried last year that did not pass actually had the quorum at 25% in person. I would be very comfortable living with that for our committees and leaving it even at the 50% for our full board. It's just that committees are very fragile in terms of their size, and it really interferes with the flow of business if we can't meet. I mean, we had to essentially not approve a number of landmark items because we didn't have, for preservation, adequate people to approve landmark applications. That's a problem. It stops the flow of
Sure.
where we're
Yeah.
required to.
And as a follow-up, are you like, we struggle managing, I mean, we do, because obviously we have reasonable accommodations for people who need to be able to join remotely, but we find it expensive and burdensome and challenging for like the health of a committee to be dealing with in-person and online participation. Like all online was fine, all in person was fine. The bifurcated approach or the two-pronged approach, again, in this world, we need to have those accommodations, but I like even just the expense and finding rooms that can accommodate this and then having the public be able to attend. I don't know, do you not experience some of those challenges?
We've struggled with audio quality for hybrid meetings, but I think we're sorting through it, and I don't think we're in a bad place right now. It took months to get the owls properly aligned and the microphones where you need them and the microphones that you hand off to each other, etc. I think we can handle the hybrid. I think there's a strong feeling that having face-to-face conversation is really important. And there's also the feeling that we get a lot more attendees when we do a hybrid meeting from the public. It's the best of a bad set of options for us, I guess.
Yeah, understood.
I just want to say that I'm with you. I have my own health issues and it's difficult for me to attend in the small rooms that we have. And standardizing the equipment for the committees that do the meetings, whatever site they're in, and things that don't even cost a lot of money, right? Just training our board members. It's so important that for the remote people, that only one person talk at a time, that they address the chair and that they be cognizant of it. Because, it's very difficult. And of course, the quality of the equipment, right? So I'm in the business, I run a conference center. So we could do a lot better. It is a challenge.
So I wondered if we could do a borough board resolution on, there's not one board that hasn't talked about the expense cost and the equipment cost. And wondering if it's a valuable thing to have the borough president advocate that basically the city should be paying for the technology that enables us all to be able to go hybrid. And we should be able to streamline the equipment through 12 different boards. So, and all the boards throughout, so everybody's using the same equipment. And quite frankly,
You're here.
And the tech support.
and the
goes
tech
with it.
support that goes with it. So I would love to see something, and I'd like to make a proposal that we go down that road to ask that the city put a budget line in to provide that. If this is going to be the new role that we have to do, this is more than just, hey, in the old days when we were all in person, you just recorded it or someone took notes. We're beyond COVID. We're now in a new world. If we're really going to be up to speed, then I think the city has to pay for the equipment and the training.
So I hear that. I just want to pass it to Chris to talk about what we have been doing and have done.
Yeah, a couple really quick things. This is something we bring up every budget cycle. Right now, I'm in a budget cycle. This is something we brought up in the last charter revision commission as well. It was ignored. Yeah. We now have two charter commissions. Oh, really? We have dueling charter commissions now again. This is an opportunity for us to try it again as well. It'd be enormously helpful if, while the council's charter commission is getting started this month, the city's charter commission just started last week, and Manhattan hearing will be in March. Boards can be prepared to testify in those types of settings about the need for the city to step up, provide funding for these specific lines you all need. Because right now, the charter is very vague on what the money for and support for community boards needs to look like. This is a chance for us to
Would it be helpful to do a borough board resolution? Because I mean,
Sure.
even a straw poll here, I don't think there's one board at this table that would say no to that.
I think it's a great idea. We have the time for it.
Yeah, if I could just add, I think if we could
do that at the next meeting, because I would love to talk to our district manager and understand what his priorities are, and then we can discuss among ourselves then, because not as note, like, all of our meetings aren't in the same locations. I don't know that owls are, we do have owls, but like, I don't know that that's the thing ultimately we need. We may need money for space rentals so that we can get spaces that have these things. So I just would want to better understand that, but I imagine that we can find consensus at least to say that the city should, to get to that place where we can testify.
Fair.
and
That still gives us
Can I
time
just say,
before-
yeah,
And that gives us some time before March too, if we can.
Yeah.
Do that.
Right. Just one other thing I want to mention. I have some experience in local government, in other states, villages, towns. And there's a whole industry of software for service, web-based applications that do things like they have modules for voting that have been approved or were designed by professional software developers to allow for accommodations in light of, court cases and reasonable accommodation standards. These are things that are out there and well established. I think what's needed is, and I've used some of these things. So what would make sense is, as part of this process for all of the boards, is to encourage a joint effort and a task force to review and see what's out there. The cost of these software for service applications obviously is much more than one community board could afford. But it's something that the city could negotiate for all of its community boards and get a very good license rate. And then all of us would have that as an option.
Thank you. Beverly, was that the end of your report, or did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to make, again, this notion of this requirement in the charter that we do an annual report. Is there anybody who does that now? And is the notion that using it to put forward where we are not getting responses from city agencies something that others would feel comfortable with? It seems to me if we do it alone, that's just the Upper West Side being weird. If there were others who did likewise, maybe it would become understood that this is a frustration we all share. That's all.
If there was a template format, that we could do a little bit of plug and play on it, much like you were saying, where you're taking your top 5 unresolved issues from the year before, that'd be really viable, because we do hear at Borough Board a lot of the same discussions, like about e-bike safety on the streets, micromobility, things that are still outstanding, so. But it's gotta be a little bit more plug and play, because our office doesn't have a ton of bandwidth.
I'll be happy to undertake a draft of a template.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have not done one.
I think we did ours before COVID. I haven't seen one since COVID.
Elise, I'll pass it over to you for CBA.
Sure. So we have, in terms of ULURP applications, we have Lenox Hill Hospital coming before the board next month. That will be a big issue for the community. There were also some issues raised at the board meeting last night about the Russell Page Gardens and the Frick Museum, and whether the Landmarks Preservation Commission and the BSA has a compliance role in making sure that things that we're committed to are actually followed up on. We passed a resolution recommending some zoning changes in the district to encourage more housing construction, hopefully affordable housing. We have a number of manufacturing zones in the district on the Upper East Side that don't necessarily make sense anymore. We went through a year-long process to really look through the zoning survey, block by block, what would be allowed, and passed a very comprehensive proposal for rezoning those manufacturing districts. And so the next step will be to go to the City Planning Commission, and try to move that forward. Like everybody else, we're concerned about, lack of enforcement for e-bikes. So, we recognize that, mobility is an issue, but it's an enforcement issue, and there seems to be a real lack of enforcement, and we understand that that's challenging. It came up a lot in talking when Central Park's talking about their drive study, really trying to find a way of balancing the competing modes, and and I think there's a big issue about just enforcement. And a big issue that we're facing, there's a lot of money for reconstruction of parks in the district, and money that has been pulled together over the years, but a lot of these projects are being delayed because of the process in getting a stormwater pollution prevention plan approved, a SWIP. And we're very concerned that by the time the SWIP is finally approved and Rupert Park, as one example, finally gets approved to go out to bid, the money that was available for the project will no longer be sufficient, because bids will have come in over that estimate, since it's been several years already since the project was supposedly ready to be put out to bid. And so that's a big concern, and really making sure that Parks Department has sufficient resources to really get this moving. We're concerned as well with the budget coming out about lack of funding for the Parks Department and what that means in terms of maintenance and security in our parks throughout the city. So it would be helpful, I think, if every community board can call for restoration of parks funding and making sure that not just the capital funding, but there's sufficient expense funding for park services. And then in terms of the conversation about technology, maybe there could be a central resource to help the community boards implement, some kind of electronic voting. And I think in terms of the loss of kind of the long-term knowledge, if we could then kind of pull use maybe some central tech resources or knowledge to look at, maybe there's some kind of AI platform or something that could be put on so that you can search the range of committee meetings and resolutions that have been passed. So if somebody's working on an issue, you could type in a question, has this been addressed before, and get kind of the historical information. I know people are doing that kind of within internal platforms at companies, but if there's some way of using that to help everybody make sure that there's, that we have a knowledge transfer. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I'm going to, if it's okay, I want to pass it to Councilmember Brewer, who's joining us remotely. Councilmember?
Thank you. I'll be very quick. And what a great group of leaders. Couple things. First of all, to the credit of Beverly, she covered several things, but one thing that's really driving me crazy is trying to save this landmark church. It goes on and on for 20 years. And so now we have an amazing group of celebrities supporting it. We also have met with the mayor's office, as you may have seen in the papers. But we're up against, a presbytery that wants to tear it down, and we're up against a lawsuit that says that the folks who are running this amazing cultural center are not really having the right kind of lease. So to tear down a beautiful church which has an amazing cultural activity going on is frustrating. So that's number one. That's very frustrating. Number two, I know we're all trying to deal with this e-bike situation. So, we have some bills that are focused on the apps. And I think the mayor's office is also, thanks to Deputy Mayor Mira Josie, is trying to do the same. There are ways of at least figuring out that if you are a bike and you have the data, the apps have the data. So somebody should be able to say you're on the sidewalk, we know that, and share that information with the city without punishing tremendously the individual who's doing the delivery. But for goodness sake, the data that the apps have, the city should have the same. And also we have some bills to try to put some speedometers on the bikes so that we too know how fast they're going. We should have to limit both the speed of city bike and the speed of the e-bike. So again, it's a long discussion. We did with Brad Holman Siegel have a great discussion at the Midtown Community Justice Center. That's a great place. If you ever have time to go visit the work that they're doing. The Judge Wang there has both, we just met with him, he has all of the quality of life issues before his 5-day-a-week court. It's everything from mental health to pedicabs, which is another topic that we're working on, e-bikes, you name it, in terms of non-felony, it's going to that court, and they're trying to come up with ideas like nobody else is doing. So I just, something to maybe have him or his staff services come and talk to the community board about what they're doing, because it's really, really impressive. And again, working on all of those fronts, the team from investigations and oversight has been working, trying to figure out with the pedicab situation. We all have congestion pricing. I think the one issue to look at is DOT, as you know, has to do a survey within 18 months of the opening of congestion pricing. So whether it's residential parking or whether it is too much, truck traffic in East Harlem, I don't know what it's going to be. But again, I would pay some attention, maybe have them come and talk about what they have found so far, because at least it'll give us some situational data. I think there is less traffic midtown, but there may be more traffic in your area as a result and more challenges. So I just don't know. We're all in the midst of discretionary budgeting. Please make sure that people apply. Sometimes people forget to apply with schools, playgrounds, etc. I assume they will, but make sure you put that out in your newsletter. In terms of oversight and investigations, we are doing a hearing on the 29th on the Inspector General of the New York Police Department. I think the Department of Investigation is quite busy these days, to put it mildly. We're hoping they're going to get some more staff. But the issue is oversight of PD could not be more important than ever. I also just want to mention that we passed a couple of bills on how you can mention 2-3-1 about cannabis issues. I think a lot of the stores are closed, although there's a lot of stuff going on in the courts about how they got closed. I just want to mention that things are coming up. We just had 100 people showed up for a CPR NICON training. They love it. And we just had a day at the Metropolitan Museum when it was closed. People love that. But on the 26th of January will be the Free Children's Book Fair. Last year we had 6,000 books at JCC from 1 to 4. We're also doing 224 Town Hall for the Upper West Side. We have tree clinics, recycling, and of course bike helmet things coming up. So that's just a quick view. The budget comes out today with the mayor. And of course, that will be our focus. Please let us know if there are issues that you want to bring up in terms of the budget. That's what we do all during March. Actually, the dates for the committees have already been set. And we look forward to hearing from you. And thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're going for an immigration hearing right now. So I appreciate Eric. Thank you so much.
Of course. I think you have one question, Sam.
Gail, we've been trying to track down in city council who sponsored the bill in regard to distancing requirements from public youth facilities, the cannabis stores. The law has to be done locally in city council. We're getting nowhere with trying to track it down because apparently you can't know who's starting a bill or taking a topic. It's kept under wraps until it's ready, which actually is super frustrating because we can't find it. And we've appealed to Speaker Adams, it's appealed everywhere. So has our city council person. All we are told is somebody is drafting something on the topic.
Okay, we'll find out. I'll get in touch with you. We'll find out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Take care. Thank you.
I know that police have to go and a couple of folks have mentioned that they have a hard out, so gonna try to get through the rest of the reports as quick as possible, so Victor, I'll pass it over to you.
Try and be quick.
And I know you've got some nights today.
Good morning, all. I want to start by thanking chairs and DMs for, I had asked for best practices around SLA applications and I got some good things back. So we're putting those into practice in our community board. So thank you for that. I also met with some of the Uptown chairs this week, 9, 10, 11, 12 met, talking about best practices and things that cross our borders. And that's been helpful as well. We want to force that as we go forward. And appreciate that. We're looking at residential parking. We had met several times prior to this. And then when congestion pricing was set back, we stopped. So we're looking at, again, we've already had an influx of people parking in our communities prior, and now we see even more. There was an article, I believe, this week in Washington Heights, physical altercations related to parking, unfortunately. We see people come, they know what alternate side is, they come sit, see Jersey plates, no, they're not, you know, people live in the area, so it's become a problem. Along with, we have the containerization program, which takes up 5 to 8 parking spaces already, e-bikes, zip cars. So we're taking a close look at residential parking, see what can be done. We just received last week, reserved parking will be taken away for delivery trucks in residential areas. So we're having a town hall on that. That's more, you know, parking. I see the need for it because of the delivery trucks double blocking traffic. So I get it. We're just trying to make sure we have a voice in it and where it's going to go, how many spaces, what days, and just want to get feedback from the community before it drops and they say, well, we didn't know about it. If you come to the meeting, you know, really trying to put that out there as well. As far as the PAC program with NYCHA, I'm a former NYCHA employee, so I'm very interested in that. I've been meeting with the developer and current NYCHA people to see exactly how it's going to affect and try and encourage the tenant leader, Manhattanville, to make sure residents know the difference between Section 9 and Section 8. There are vast differences and they need to know that. Right sizing, apartment right sizing is one of those things that they're really going to enforce pretty closely. So just trying to make sure, especially our seniors, a lot of them are nervous what's going on. And the management has already changed to a private manager. So just trying to get the word out to make sure people are very aware of that. I'll be meeting this evening with State Senator Cordell Clare. She has a coalition that's dealing with Columbia's expansion in the area. They asked me to come and speak. I've worked with Columbia very closely. I've monitored their CBA for the last 5 years as far as compliance. I just want to give both sides what has been positive from Columbia and what needs to be done. We've seen, you know, real estate go up. We've seen the loss of housing in the area and just trying to work that out. So I'm hoping we get a decent turnout and people will listen to some of the good things, but also Columbia just needs to step up a little more. Hoping the new interim president will listen. The last president that was there who left, unfortunately, was a great community person from day one. She was very accepting and wanted to come out and see things. I was very hopeful there. Lastly, part of a op-ed in the Daily News.
Mentioned with Columbia.
Yes, regarding the closing of Columbia's gates to Transverse 116 between Amsterdam and Broadway, which adds 4 or 5 blocks to people having to walk around. A lot of seniors, people with disabilities have to do that. So I've spoken with Columbia several times. I haven't got anywhere yet. I'm hoping this next step will help to free that up. And it's supposed to be a public walkway. It's not really Columbia space as it is, as people think it is. So we're hoping that I've come up with some solutions. I've talked to a few people. So hopefully going forward, we can kind of resolve this and just make it better for everybody. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much. I know we have Marquise virtually.
Good morning, sorry, at work, sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'll be really quick. Well, right now we're in the middle of a major ULIP, and our public hearing, our second public hearing surrounding project 145 will be this evening. That was previously before Community Board 10, and that failed. And And so there's a lot of time, energy being invested in it, and we're certainly trying to get as much public input about this project as it would change the skyline of Harlem, as well as the amount of apartments. Certainly I know there's some concern about the amount of affordable apartments and how it would change Harlem, as well as also it would basically the shadowing impacts of those two buildings on a street on 145th Street in Harlem is could have a very interesting impact because we also have some very tall buildings there, but that would be completely covered at that point. So there's some, a lot of discussion, and certainly it's the biggest thing that we have before us right now. Some things that came before us this month that that brought a lot of discussion is we've been having some issues further north in our district with the PSA 6 precinct and their parking for the last 10 years all over the streets where it's supposed to be parallel parking, and they completely block up 3 blocks. So the first time we've been working with the PSA 6, and they've been trying to move their officers to park, properly or to do better job. However, we have some real concerns, and we've been expressing to them is that they continue to park in the bus lanes and block a lot of, there's also schools around. And so some of the real danger is that when people are waiting for the bus, they have to step all the way into the street. It prevents those who possibly may need wheelchair access or bus lift access. They can never get that because in those stops, the precinct officers are there. So they have a new captain and a new leadership. We met, they came to our general board meeting. We expressed the real concern around that. And this is for the first time in many years that we actually see an effort being made by the PSA 6 to kind of shift the culture of that precinct, in which basically the officers park anywhere and completely block the street. So that's something we've been dealing with both DOT and all signage. It doesn't matter basically because they're basically parking however they want. We also had a lot of interesting discussion about something I think being referred to like around loading zones in our district. I think we're calling it loading zones in some sense, where zones that are being created around for packages and things like that. It's like Amazon delivery. There's a lot of discussion, but also asking DOT to collaborate and actually work with the board before assigning areas, kind of like figuring out what is best, because we had a lot of discussion from community members in residential neighborhoods pushing back about some of these areas where there's already limited parking because of city bikes and so on and so forth. Now with congestion pricing, there's a lot of problems in regards to some of these zones that they're now creating where it would be reserved for many hours for just these big trucks to kind of unload packages. However, the one thing is that people are ordering lots of packages. And so we also are mindful that people in our district, I'm sure every community want to get their packages. So how do we balance that and kind of work together in helping to choose those areas that are going to be those zones where we work collaboratively. So overall, we've really been talking with DOT and kind of trying to say, before putting certain things forward, why don't you work more and give us more heads up, as we don't seem to get that. And even when we ask for public comment, it's not necessarily even 30 days sometimes, or it's after the committee meeting has taken place. And before the next committee meeting, we have to give comment. So it doesn't allow us to actually get the input and feedback. And so I've had to send several letters several times requesting and demanding that we get more time to respond and to reply, because we won't even be able to have a full public meeting before they're saying the comment time will be up. And so that's one of some of the other concerns we've been addressing. Overall, I think that congestion pricing obviously is having an impact on the whole city. But I think in the upper zones where this parking situation is something we talked about prior to it being implemented. But I certainly would like to know the effects, and certainly all the Upper West Side Board, Upper East Side boards, and all the Uptown boards. I would love to have a conversation about how this is impacting your communities, in regards to, parking. And we're really concerned too with like things like City of Yes, where parking would be required for some of the build, new, possibly real estate that develops. How is this now going to impact our community? Because people are parking anywhere now, and in front of fire hydrants, in front of all these, I've seen many things in the last week where it just was shocking. Some, and we've had these conversations in our transportation meetings. The last thing is that we're also concerned about public safety, of course. And we've been trying to talk a lot about, we're trying to work closer with the precinct and other supportive groups in our community around violence. We recently in our district was where the post office, US postal officer was murdered in the store or killed in the store after a conflict. And that was something that was just devastating to our community, and, you know, just to hear and learn about that. So we're just really concerned about the uptick in violence, and particularly around with knives and things like that in our community, among young people, as well as just adults carrying knives for their own protection, but using it in a very violent way. And in good news, we had last month we did a major Tory drive that was very good for the holidays, and we were glad to host in our district the City of the State address at the world famous Apollo Theater.
Thank you, Marquise. Xavier, I'll pass it to you to close us out.
Very good. Happy New Year again. I don't know when we'll stop saying it. It's good to be back. We had our full board meeting right before the holidays, and we were done in about an hour 45, which was nice. And then we were at El Museo del Barrio, and we had a Christmas meal, a holiday meal brought in, which was very lovely. We kicked off the year very busy, like the rest of you. We had Three Kings Day, which is very important for the community there. We even had the camels come out with the snow. It was very lovely. We all marched. Yeah, the camels are still marching. It's really fantastic. So we've hit the ground running and talking about the transition of institutional knowledge. Now, I was mentored, dating myself, by people like Francis Mistrota, who's still alive today, Joe Goldblum, who mentored me with all things budget. There are a lot of people that have transitioned off, and I want to thank the MBPO's office for trying to dissect this, and the chief counsel trying to say, you know, where the details are for if you're a mid-year appointment. We do realize this past 2024, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that is lacking in that transition, and that cannot fall just exclusively to the staff because it's just too much for one person to shoulder. As such, I've been meeting with all the individual committee chairs one-on-one, and it includes a complete eval, look back, a look forward, how we can better collaborate with other committees, such as in our Uptown boards. And we had our meeting and talking about, you don't need our permission to reach out to your sister committees on another board. We encourage that. If you're getting, if you're getting stopped, let us know. We will liaise and make sure that that's connected. And to that end, one of the things that we talked about, I think we lost Marquise. Oh no, Marquise is still there, is that we want to have an Uptown 9, 10, 11, and 12 social, hopefully hosted in 9 or 10, and bring all of our board members together. We're expecting hopefully about 100 people, we hope, and be able to connect people, and because we're not just separated by borders, just like I work with Val Mason from CB8 very closely and a lot of those other committees. So it's important for us to pass on that knowledge. And so as soon as I'm done, I've gotten 2/3 of all the committee chairs and executive. Next Thursday, we should have that all completed. And then I'm meeting with the vice chairs. Some of them are also chairs on another committee, but it's part of an integrated approach to passing on that information. Some board members just want to be present. Others want to do more, which we encourage, but we want to activate those. The vice chairs will be meeting in February, so I can assess where they'd like to go. The next thing that brings up is congestion pricing. Anecdotally, we are seeing an uptick in New Jersey, Connecticut plates in the area. That is an issue. We've received a series of phone calls. We're saying people are literally going around the blocks multiple times, especially closer to the express stops. But we are seeing it over by 103, 110, 116. As this is studied, and I think that we have we lost Councilmember Brewer. There has been an outcry for resident parking permits. That's something that when Councilmember Brewer was our borough president, that we advocated for. This is going back to 2015. There is great interest in that it would be designated by your community district lines to make it very easy, and that would allow free transfers throughout and the entirety of Manhattan, and very similar to the other boroughs, so that the congestion pricing wouldn't apply. We have a lot of homebound, a lot of people with conditions that don't allow them to travel via public transportation, and it is an additional encumbrance for them to fill out paperwork to get a refund on it. But we will be taking that on in the coming months. Public safety also, to our Marquise's point, we are seeing issues, and I want to be very that we had our district services cabinet. I want to say thank you to Maggie, who was on, especially when it comes to 116th Street. We are getting numerous phone calls and emails, and we tell them we are doing our level best to address it with the MTA and NYPD. It is a problem, and we're working collaboratively to solve it. But again, I go and visit these locations whenever we get emails sent over with pictures or phone calls. We do encourage our community members to call 311, so we have that data, because that's what the staff will pull down. But again, our community has faced, I would gently call it a distrust in the city system, that they feel it's not being taken seriously. And we encourage them again and again and again, they need to file a complaint so that way we have record of it, and you can do it so anonymously. The other issues we just had a landmarks meeting last night. And for those of you who have not been to East Harlem, which I invite you all to come up, we actually had a support for landmarks preservation mission to evaluate Maggie's Magic Garden for designation as a scenic landmark. For those who don't know, we went through our 2017 rezoning, and which called for mandatory inclusionary housing. The pipe dream of 100% affordability, its genesis came through East Harlem, and we are very proud of that. However, one of the conversations on that issue was how many other boards are seeking out affordable housing, how much is actually being developed. So I would really appreciate if you could just circle back to me and let me know what the calculations of affordable housing in each of your districts. That would be helpful, because there was questions with the committee on whether or not we're the only ones shouldering a lot of that. I know we're not, but it's good to have what those percentages are. We do desire to have a ladder of affordability, so that people who are born in that community can stay in that community, and the next generation can continue, such as Sendero Verde, which was a huge development. On our previous speaker, Melissa Mark-Viverito, was very instrumental in that and worked with us at CB11. I think that happened a couple of years ago. She was there for the ribbon cutting. So with that, we're hitting the ground running. Look forward to having our next chair get together and making sure we're working, hand in glove. And yeah, just very excited. So thank you very much. I'll conclude.
Great. Thank you so much. And keep us in the loop if you need anything on residential parking permits. As you probably know, Mark was one of the folks that carried the bill, was the sponsor of the bill in the city council, and has continued to work with council. I think it's Carmen de la Rosa, who currently has one of the bills, and we've had an op-ed on this as well. So we were pushing for it. Sir.
Yeah, I think when I spoke with Mark last year briefly, we talked about the model that was done in London Zone 2, which is part of Chelsea, and Kensington, the borough of Kensington and Chelsea. So
we'd like to hear and see some of that, because it's been met with a large amount of pushback from CB1 because of situations from people that they know in Brooklyn, where there are 1,000 permits that are issued, but there's 2,000, there's more people than permits necessarily. And then there's more permits issued than there are spaces. And so therefore it hasn't stopped or helped the circle the block. So because a lot of people from the community board used to go to Brooklyn to go food shopping, because we didn't have groceries, there's a lot of knowledge of those drivers, which is making a lot of current rulemaking not included and not desired for a change.
And there's a couple of different bills. I know the one that we were talking about specifically was a pilot program uptown.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear different options and different things to dispel and quell the concerns, if there's an opportunity.
Yes, I think the issue, and again, just from previous conversations, is that the way they implemented it is that you had your neighborhood and you had to be domiciled there. You'd have to have your plates there, and insurance coverage there. So, you know, you have all 3 levels of insurance. And then that would allow you to get the parking permit. Anyone who existed outside of that neighborhood would have to pay metered parking. And they had just enough. So the calculations, yes, there would be slightly more spaces, but the idea behind it is that not everyone's just going to be leaving there 24/7. They may be going to work. So you'll see those spots exchange. But a case in point to CB9's observations is that we discovered during the pandemic WhatsApp chats with people who were exchanging spots, and a lot of our streets were not getting cleaned because those people with out-of-state plate were not moving their cars when the sweeper would come by. And sometimes the traffic agents would come and later ticket others who may exchange into that spot because they see the marks going around. And so it's a really kind of I think there is room for conversation.
We had a guy selling spots.
Huh?
We had guys selling
That's
spots.
inevitable.
Yeah, so it's really ridiculous. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thanks. We don't have CB12 with us, so that'll conclude chair reports. I will now take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Hopefully I'll have a community board application for you
Yay.
tomorrow, if not Monday.
You saw that 2 board members resigned.
I mentioned
Yes.